Well, you propose a couple of ways in which this might be turned around, or this might go in the next few years. And you mentioned Michel Houellebecq's novel Submission, in which the protagonist makes an effort to come home to Christianity, and he can't do it.
Yes.
And you say, because as you know, every village in Europe is centered around a church on a village green and all the rest of it, and you're not asking people to become necessarily believing Christians, but just to return to the cultural Christianity that was, you know, the old joke about, oh no, when the Jehovah's Witness knock on your door, oh no, we're not religious here, mate, we're Church of England. You know, that you know all the hymns, you recognize the biblical quotation, the things that were standard in Britain a generation ago, and on most of the continent. And we're along, even getting back to that.
Yes. I try to, I mean, some of the things I say in the book about slowing down the migration flow and all these things are sort of practical suggestions, but these are the ones, are the ones
the
that
big
really matter.
existential things,
I mean, I'm not asking people to be believing Christians. I'm not a believing Christian. But one of the things I say is we are Christians anyway, whether we like it or not, and we're probably finding that out at the moment. I mean, where the hell do people think that human rights came from?
Yeah, right.
I mean, these are things that exist on the embers of Christian thought.
But you know as well as I do, Douglas, that there are a lot of people who say, well, I'm totally opposed to what Islam's doing. And then they say, I'm a secular, rational atheist.
No, they're a secular, rational Christian atheist.
Right.
They may not want to be, but they are.
Yeah.
They still dream Christian dreams.
Yeah.
They still have Christian thoughts and impulses. They don't actually behave as they would if they had no baggage at all. But this is one of the most important things, is what is our attitude towards this past? There's a passage in the book where I mention, what is our attitude to these buildings in our midst? Are they embarrassments? Are they something we think we return to in times of trouble? And one of the few things, this is, as it were, too deep to be picked up by the sort of average Guardian reviewer, who I was somewhat lambasted by, as if it was, you know, this classic. There's a classic thing about the shallowness of our time, where whenever you mention anything important, it's like, oh, what are you going on about that for? You know, this goes back to the thing about the migration. You know, like, why didn't you join us in talking about this boring by-election prediction?
Right. The sort of present tense hamster wheel is all that matters.
But this attitude, what our attitudes towards our past is, matters, and warring on it, I know, is not an answer. In fact, is part of our current catastrophe. Warring on our past includes the people who say, I'm really against suicide bombers, and that's why we've got to close faith schools.
Right.
Or they go, I will criticize the crazy jihadi, but I also don't want bishops in the House of Lords.
No.
And I mean, apart from being a total waste of your energies and time, it's also just obviously positioning. You know, I'm just showing I'm really even-handed in this. It's also that Ratzinger, Pope Benedict, is one of the sort of central figures of this book in a way, because we should take seriously several of the very straightforward things he urged. And one of them was, he said, he at one point urged and persuaded the late Oriana Fallaci, who was an atheist, of this. He said to behave as though God exists. And he also made what I think of as being one of the key insights, because one of the reasons why people war on their origins in Europe is, apart from the positioning and all that sort of thing, is because they think that it's about the philosophy and the reason and the science or the religion.
Right.
And I say at one point in the book that we should recognize, for instance, I say, look, the churches have given up claims. Benedict did it himself in the encyclical. They've given up the claim to legislate. Okay, there are parts of the world where that's not the case, but in modern Europe, the churches basically have no legislative power and have, by their own admission, said they don't want it. So as long as they cannot impose their beliefs on a non-believer or somebody who believes, the argument about the position of religion to that extent in the moral sphere has been sorted out. But there's something that the non-religious then have to do, which is, and I think this is a quid pro quo, which is to concede that in matters like issues to do with life and meaning, the churches have a voice. You know, they've thought about this. I mean, one of the great things I discover on campuses sometimes is people are like, oh, we don't want any like X telling us about, we don't want that bishop telling us about, procreation.
Right.
I think, well, it's possible that the church has thought about these matters. I mean, it may have even thought about them more than you have in your 18 years of life or whatever. And there's a whole set of issues where that's the case. It's almost as if we've said, anything that comes from our religious and philosophical tradition, by its nature, is of no interest to us.
Right.
Because we've got this great new idea. And of course, sadly, the great new idea is this St. George in retirement, as the late Ken Minogue described syndrome, where the whole of life is a set of battles for rights, and you've slain the dragon, and now you stagger around the land looking for smaller and smaller dragons, till you're in the situation the left's in at the moment, where they're just standing, leering, and like waving a sword around at empty air.